The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, the United or the Ultimate Guide to Greys, Reptilians, Hybrids and Nordics, is one of the most fascinating books produced in 2021. And just like its title says, it's an almanac on extraterrestrial species. It's one of the most requested topics in the UFO believing community. This book's author is multiple award-winning filmmaker and Emmy-nominated casting director Craig Campobasso. Among his work, Craig directed, wrote and produced the short film Stranger at the Pentagon, and he also wrote the four-book series, The Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga, The Huroid Revolution and Other Warring Creatures. Craig joins us now. Hi, Craig.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Or good wherever.
Well, whatever time this interview is played, or whatever time people listen to it,
that's right.
That'll do. But I just wanted to ask you up front on that book series you wrote on the extraterrestrial saga. So, what is a Huroid? I think I'm
well, that is book 4, is the Huroid Revolution. So the book series is called The Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga. Then each book has a subtitle. So book 1 is I Am Tehran, book 2 is Waking Tehran, book 3 is Tehran's Dossier, and then book 4 is the Huroid Revolution. So Huroids basically are it's a long process, but they were from a world that destroyed themselves, and there was a whole world of souls that were looking to have a physical experience again. Mm-hmm. And so since their world was dualistic and in a fully conscious society out there in the universe, is they created bodies for them to inhabit, which they still are dualistic, and they are still learning and being taught by the fully conscious beings and things like that. So a lot of times they are assistants to the gods, to commanders, to different things, and then as they move up the evolutionary ladder, it goes on. But we do learn at a certain point in the Huroid Revolution what their world was, why it was destroyed, how that all happened, and how the whole Huroid population began, and who they are, what they are, and all of that kind of stuff. It's really fascinating.
It certainly sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Craig, what I found fascinating was reading, the ET Species Almanac. It's a topic you just need to go through some of the forums online, and it's just one of the most requested topics that people want to talk about. ET races, how many are there? What do they look like? Who are they? But without, before we actually look at the book, I thought we probably couldn't do that until we know exactly how you became interested in UFOs and aliens, how your father is connected to all of this, and whether you are an experiencer yourself.
Sure. When I was 26 years old, I had a spirit just the average dualistic guy who was asleep. I never even thought about what was out there in the universe. I thought, oh, there's other planets, we hear whatever. But once I had this spiritual awakening, it was like all the cells in my body sort of woke up to the cosmic community. And when you wake up, you're just like when we meditate and we go within, I started to learn about a mind internet where you start to connect to other races and species and things of that nature, and through master teachers and all of these different kinds of things, and that a lot of this is brought to you through some sort of dream states, downloads, things of that nature. You will always find that a master teacher will never tell you how things are done. They might guide you to your own conclusions and answers, because everybody's reality is their own, right? So that really was my experience in delving into this. And yes, I am an experiencer as well. I've had many experiences throughout my life that brought me to this. I had a 2-year waking up process from 26 to 28, where I sort of was clearing my vessel and learning and becoming awake, more and more awake and aware. I wrote a 400-page book about all of those experiences that I was going through, um, and the enlightenment that I had gained for my soul. I mean, it was like going from 0 to 100
Mm-hmm.
in a matter of short time, where sometimes it would take a regular person a whole lifetime to get there. And some people never get there because they're too afraid to step out of their comfort zone and experience, even if, because people don't want to experience pain. And and moving through learning and lessons, yes, we experience pain, but then you also learn that you can learn through joy
Mm-hmm.
instead of pain. So that was my journey in the beginning. So at the end of these 2 years, and I had a 400-page book, uh, and I was thinking about trying to get it published. And then one of my main master teachers came to me and said, "What would you say if I told you that you wrote that book for yourself?" And I said, "Then I've learned a lot about myself." And he said, "Now it is time to sit down and write the real books that you were meant to write." And he said, "I want you to sit down and I want you to keep writing and writing and writing, never stop, never edit, keep writing until you hear no more words." Right.
Right.
So I was so young. I didn't know what channeling was. I just did what I heard, and I started writing and writing and writing, and I just kept writing, and I would write words. I had no idea what they were. And if I didn't know how to spell them, I'd say, "Could you spell it?" And they would spell it. And then I would go and look it up in the dictionary and saw how perfectly well it
Mm-hmm.
fit.
Wow.
So this is how the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga books came about. And it's really all about the, uh, like we here experience through Star Trek, going out into the universe and learning and exploring. This is about the actual universe and how it's raising Earth up into universal society and through consciousness raising programs on the planet, so that when we become fully conscious, we will rejoin universal society, and then we'll be able to have that exploration of going to other planets, other schools of learning,
Mm-hmm.
going to giant schools and learning there, and going on exchange programs and all kinds of things that seem very science fiction to us, but it is not that far off,
Right.
honestly, because if you look at where we were in the 70s and where we are now, wow, we went leaps and bounds,
Gosh, I
right?
mean, you,
Very much.
you look at where we were at the turn of the 20th century, and then fast forward 121 years later. I mean, gosh, I mean we've been kind of dealing with bows and arrows for centuries and centuries and centuries, and all of a sudden we're putting men on the moon.
And then boom, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And now we're on Mars, and we've got a little helicopter on Mars, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, and this is just what we know, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a whole lot that we don't know, that we're not being told, but at least we see that there is, that's kind of progress. So
Well,
um,
how did your father play a part in all this?
well, when I was 12 years old, my mom told me that my father was my stepfather and that I had a biological father. Um, the story went that she was dating him, she became pregnant with me, and then she found out that he was already married and had a kid. So my mom ended the relationship and wouldn't let him. She said he came to the door once after I was born, and she said, I just told him to go away and put the door in his face. And that, I think that was the Irish in her.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and, you know, as she always said. But so anyway, all she really knew was his name, and that was about it. There had never been any contact throughout the years or anything like that. So when the internet came about, I looked him up on the internet a few times. I couldn't find him. I found other people with his name, but they weren't him. I wrote letters. So around somewhere in 2019, when my book agent called me and said, I got a great idea for a book, and I even have the title, and he said, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, and you're the guy to write it, because he knew because of my autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga books, but
Hmm.
not only about my 35-year involvement in the entire UFO community and researching extraterrestrials. Um, so while I'm writing the book, I got a phone call from a woman in Canada who told me that I was either her fourth or fifth cousin on my mother's father's side, and that she was looking for some information, which I gave her. And then I asked her if she could find my biological father, and she said, sure, I can find anyone. So about 6 months later, she sent me an email and said he passed away in 2006, but this is where he's buried. So I immediately went down to the cemetery, went to the front desk and said, do you have a name of anybody that called when he passed away? Lo and behold, they had one name, no contact info, but
Hmm.
I took the name, I went and visited his crypt, and came home, looked up the man's name on the internet. 74-year-old man living around the corner from me. He had a different last
Wow.
name than Fred. And so I thought maybe it was like a buddy or something, right? Or a family friend. So I wrote him a letter, because all it had was his address online, and put my picture in and said, if you know anybody in his family, please forward this to them. So 2 days later, I got a call from this man's son who said, my dad got your letter. And I said, oh, was your dad friends with him? And he said, no, actually, it's his half brother. And I said, oh, so you're my cousin? And he goes, well, yeah, I guess I am.
Huh.
And he said, this is a little strange because nobody ever expects to receive a letter like this. But because you put your photograph in there, it is mind blowing how identical you look to him. And
Wow.
I said, I have no idea. I don't have a picture of him. I never knew what he looked like, right? Except for a photograph my mom gave me when I was a boy, when I was 12, but that photograph went missing somewhere through time. So anyway, I made we made dinner plans with me, my cousin, and my new Uncle John. And my Uncle John just stared at me the whole time with this smile and these eyes. It's just weird because you look just like him. You're the same height. You're like identical. And I can't believe he never told us. I can't believe it that we missed out on having you throughout our
Hmm.
lives. And anyway, so it's a 3-hour dinner. An hour into the dinner, he said, well, your father really wanted to go into the Air Guard before he was 18. So he begged our mother to sign the paperwork, which she did. He went into the Air Guard. When he was 18, they put him into the Air Force. He went into intelligence. And then as an afterthought, he said, oh, and by the way, he worked in that Project Blue Book.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I was like, exactly. My face dropped.
Hmm.
And I said, do you even know what that is? And he said, well, sort of. And then my cousin chimed in and said, look, me and my brother uh, always would hammer him throughout the years to try and get any information out of him about UFOs. And he was totally tight-lipped. He would never talk about it. And I said, well, he was really good at keeping secrets, wasn't he? Because he never told you about me. Right.
Mhm.
So anyway, my uncle has since went and I found them through DNA that was already in the system. And my uncle had since gone and had it done. And he goes, oh my God, it connected to me right to you right away. And I said, yeah, I know. That's how I found you guys. So anyway, it's been great because I found this whole other part of my family. I talk to them all the time, see them when I can, and then found out I had well, I have an older sister, but nobody knows what happened to her. And I have a stepbrother and two stepsisters who flew
Mhm.
out to meet me, and all of that. So it's been a really fascinating journey there because my book, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, is a MUFON book. And MUFON is a US based nonprofit
Mhm.
of civilian volunteers who study reported UFO sightings. And Fred, working for Project Blue Book, that was the Air Force study on UFOs that started in 1952 and was decommissioned in 1970, that investigated over 11,000 sightings, right? And their study was to determine if UFOs were a threat to national security.
Right, right.
Um, Now, I've been in the film business ever since I was 15, right? And I started casting movies and TV when I was 23. I've been doing it well over 30 years. And so my uncle told me your father at a certain point realized he was not going to have the military career that he wanted, and he was quite tired of it. So he came back home, and he eventually met someone who introduced him to the Union IATSE, and he became the uh, head of construction at Warner Brothers, building sets for movies
Wow.
and TV.
So,
So
we're starting to see the connection between the two of you.
it's in the DNA. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is in the DNA. And I was trying to map it out. It looked like when I was working at Universal, he was working at Warner Brothers, really two studios that were back to back,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I mean, so anyway, I you can't write that. You
No,
just can't
no.
write that. I mean, that was just such an amazing part to learn about who he was and that kind of thing. But evidently, I guess it really is in your DNA.
Yeah. So the book itself, you talk about 82 ET races. So where did you get the information from? Was it part of the downloads you were talking about earlier, or was it through MUFON's cases, or was it somewhere else?
Well, I chose 82 races because I had to make the book under 300 pages per the publisher.
Right.
And really, what the publisher wanted were thumbnail reviews. And then, if the reader was interested in a particular race, they can go and research it on the internet. So that was the purpose of the book. And I chose 82 races because I'm a fan of the former Canadian Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer.
Hmm.
And Mr. Hellyer, in one of the last interviews he gave, he said he knew of 82 races that were visiting Earth.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
I know there is way more than that is visiting Earth and has visited Earth, because I came up with a whole analog when I was doing this book. Now, what I did is I, throughout all the years, I had read many books on contactees that were having face-to-face contact with different extraterrestrials from all over this universe, and some multidimensional. So I went back to those materials and I either went to the publishers or to the actual contactees and talked to them about inclusion of those extraterrestrial races in the book. So a
Right.
lot of the information is from real contactee information. Some of these contactees, like Maurizio Cavallo with the Clarions, I actually have two real photographs that he took of the Clarions that are included in the book. And Ricardo Gonzalez, who is in contact with the Alpha Centaurians, which are called the Apunians because that when they come down in South America, they originally came to the mountain of Apu,
Hmm.
which means God, and so the race just became by the locals known as the Apunians because they came from this God mountain, and they actually helped all of the very extremely poor locals by healing their sick, um, giving them little medications, salves, things like that when needed. Also would make it rain for their crops to make sure that they were fed correctly and things of that nature. So now a friend of mine in 2015, Ricardo Gonzalez took a group of about 100 people out to Sand Flats on Mount Shasta, and and how you get benevolent extraterrestrial races to show up is by meditation, putting yourself in a heart space.
Hmm.
And they also love singing and chanting and being in a happy space. And then this is usually when you will have physical contact with seeing their craft. They will bring the craft over. So Ricardo said that the Apunians would show up, and they did show up in the craft, which was witnessed by my friend, and I've been talking to several others that were there that day as well and night. And then there were about 8 people that were chosen to go with Ricardo into the forest and meet Antaral, who is an extraterrestrial 10-foot man from Alpha Centauri. And how they appear is they appear in a portal, and they call it a Zendra, right?
Right. Right.
So you can imagine it's a big oval portal like this on the
Hmm.
ground,
Hmm.
and so they actually witnessed and heard Antaral along with 2 other normal sized beings and another smaller sized being, and it lasted maybe 20 minutes. And when the people came out of the forest, my friend was right there. Everyone else was supposed to go to base camp, but my friend stayed in the meadow to watch it from that vantage point. He said he was about 200 feet away. He saw the light. He saw the whole forest light up. He saw the craft overhead, and he was the one who to the people walked out, and he said one man who was not spiritually attuned or anything had just sort of come along for the ride to
Yeah.
see what it was all about. He actually was not invited into the forest but went anyway, and he sort of was a little bit at wit's end because this was quite the experience if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
Everyone else looked
Yeah.
like they had a major mystical experience. So, anyway, now getting back to the races in the book, other races that were a little more enigmatic, like the mantis beings and things like that, throughout the years, I had met a lot of hybrids of different extraterrestrial race cultures. And so I I interviewed a mantis hybrid. I interviewed several other hybrids, an Arcturian hybrid, and I had several close friends throughout the years who were actual hybrids. One person whose father was in the military, and they were in an exchange with them, exchanging DNA. So they did a test where they injected 4 different races into this military man's wife's embryo that was already fertilized in her womb.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how my friend came about. She was born a twin, and the twin died somewhere in her 20s. And my friend lived on, and she looked quite different than most people. Her, you know, her skin texture was a little different,
Mm-hmm.
sort of translucent white, sort of very aqua eyes. Her fingers and hands were just a little bit different, but she was so heart-based and such a lovely, lovely person. I also interviewed 2 of the top hypnotherapists who have put under many people who have been contactees or abductees. And then of course, I myself throughout the years have met many contactees and abductees,
Mm-hmm.
and listened to their stories and saw some of the
Yep.
most strangest stuff.
You mentioned the hypnotherapist. We'll be talking about Kathleen Marden and Barbara Lamb.
Well, Barbara Lamb for sure. Kathleen is a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen also helped me with the Zeta Reticulans in the book, because those were the two different races that met with Betty and Barney when they took them on board.
Right.
So that was direct information with Kathleen. And the other hypnotherapist is Yvonne Smith.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, who's done tons of
Yeah,
regressions.
I've had I've done a couple of really good interviews with Yvonne, and just
Yeah.
totally fascinating. Craig, what about the races themselves? Are they predominantly humanoid?
Yes, they are predominantly humanoid, and interestingly enough, what I found when really researching this book is that DNA is sort of the most prized possession of the universe, because all of these tech gods, as I call them, they're very far advanced than us, and they can create races and beings and things at will. But also the negative races, the malevolent races, have that ability as well. So they can create races that are more negative in nature that they can control and use, sort of like in
Yeah.
George Lucas, the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
They can create they can create creatures that are there to do their bidding and to do their sort of things. That's where I sort of think EBEs come in, because they're chlorophyll based, although they are like living entities. I mean, my questions are that I raised in the book: are they mind controlled by their masters?
Right.
And if you were a negative race and wanted to go do abductions and things like that on a planet, why not create these creatures to do it for you so that you stay safe?
Well, I'll just pick you up on that too, because I had a gentleman contact me last year, and we kept in touch for a while, and he was literally in hiding, because he had been kidnapped on several occasions by a nasty species of greys who he
Mhm.
says were actually created by another species, and who had actually left our planet about 12,000 years ago, and this species was left here to do their bidding for them. and he's been kidnapped several times, and he's always in fear of his life, and they always find him. But it probably gets back to what you're talking about, how even the malevolent ones have the ability to create people or entities that
Yes,
can do their bidding for them.
they do. They do. They definitely have that ability. And what I would say for anyone that is having this kind of negative extraterrestrial thing is they it has definitely been known that if you evoke your own power, and if you are a Christian and want to say in the name of Jesus, if you are spiritual and want to use Archangel Michael, or if you're a Buddhist and want to use Buddha, it's all the same thing, that you call upon those angelic hosts and you call upon those to make it stop, and that it usually will, because of because you have evoked that power, and they don't want to come up against that power because they know they can't win. So they will stop, because if they continue and these beings stay after them, then they have to look into their own selves, into their own light, and that's what they don't want to do. You see, that's
Wow.
why a
Yeah.
lot of ghosts, for instance, get stuck here, because people don't want to go into the light to do their life review, to see all of the horrible things they did, because they have to relive it. Because when they're reliving it, what they're experiencing is not the feelings they had when they did it.
It's who
They're
they've hurt.
experiencing
Yeah.
the other person, the hurt and the pain, and that is more painful than anything when you're back in that soul body, and you're in that recognition that that is the thing that is more painful. And then you as a soul, along with those teachers on the other side, have to design a new lifetime for you to learn how to get out of that, to pay that karmic debt and to get out of it. And people don't want to do that. So the longer they stay on the other side, and the angrier they get, and the angrier they get, that's how they turn into demons, and that's how they turn into creatures,
Joseph Jordan, he reports on this a lot about rebuking these entities in the name of Jesus, or whatever your religion is based around. And I'm actually speaking with him again shortly, but he wrote a book called Piercing the Cosmic Veil. It's just fascinating. Get a chance, maybe grab a copy of it. But
yes,
I mean, we often hear of malevolent and benevolent being thrown around with a lot of ETs, and the one species that always seems to get thrown into the malevolent category is the reptilian species.
yes.
And then the benevolence, we have the Arcturians and the Nordics. And then when it comes to the greys, they're kind of split. There are bad greys and there are good greys, and there are some greys in between that don't really care. So
Right.
can you give us like a short list of the malevolent and the benevolent species?
Well, I would say that a lot of the things that I've learned over the years about the bad greys in different races and things of that nature is, some were scientific, lost their way, systems. By the way, I mean, there were reports that I had seen on their reproductive, right? And a lot of theirs are completely different than ours, and was really unique to sort of see how some of these races were set up for reproductive. Um, so they also, so when they lost their light, they literally lost their soul matrix, right? And so they knew their race was dying, and that they had to get DNA, and the closest DNA was to use human DNA, because we have a soul matrix and ascension matrix.
Right.
And that's why all of us here on Earth are gold to a lot of these cultures, because they're already ascended, but we have the ascension already built into us, right? So
Hmm.
for ascension, moving off this planet when we graduate. And so they would come and they would just abduct people at will and do things, where maybe another benevolent race that's looking for DNA materials would ask that soul, and if that soul said yes, then they would extract genetic materials. It gets into even farther
Yeah,
finites,
yeah.
but if souls are star seeds from other places, sometimes it is part of their contract to give of their genetic materials here only to benevolent forces for whatever use,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, and because they also create races, like the seventh ray race in the book is taking extraterrestrial human races and then DNA from here and making these children. And so they are part Earth, part extraterrestrial. And then when the Earth shifts over, they will be the teachers that are put down here on Earth, and everyone will feel very a kinship to them because they're part us and they're part them, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, which makes sense.
yeah, it's
So,
fascinating.
it is fascinating.
What?
So, um, but in the Greys and things like that, and then when we look at the Sasani race through Bashar, right, that they lived in a parallel reality. They were humans that eventually that ruined their planet, destroyed their planet, and they turned into Greys
Hmm.
over time.
Right.
And so they went into these alternate realities like here, and they then used our DNA to blend back into their DNA. And in the book, we have all 7 hybrids of what their genetic programming is. So they're back to being this um, very highly advanced spiritual race. We would call them, even though we would say they're 300 years in the future, they're 3,000 years ahead of us
Right.
in technology and spirituality. So there's that, but there are all different shapes and sizes of grays. Small
I
ones, tiny ones, tall, extremely tall ones. They are most common also as much as humans are.
Yeah. Well, I was told by a couple of experiences that have had, a lot of contact with one particular race of greys, that they're fascinated by the human soul. And,
Right.
and it's almost like they're trying to harvest the soul, but they don't know how. And in the process, a lot of people seem to be expendable and get hurt.
Well, the supposedly in a lot of their beginnings, when they would extract the DNA and create the embryos in the lab, they found that they wouldn't take. So then they had to start inserting them into the real life mothers down here, right, into the wombs. And somewhere after 49 days to 3 months, they would then remove it. And from what I have heard is they wait, because when the pineal gland supposedly is matured or is uh, created in the womb, that also the soul attaches.
Hmm.
And so if they harvest it, then they've got the soul attached, and then they breed it in their labs. And then the other thing they found is that if the actual mother does not hold that child, that child's rate of survival is like half and half.
Yeah.
So that's why they usually bring the mothers up, and that's why a lot of these women are brought back up and they're holding the babies, or they see someone else holding their babies. Now I have talked to a lot of people that have had these experiences and have seen their children, or have seen their children not just as half grays, half that, but also as humans,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And they literally are weeping and wanting to go back home to this place to be with their real family, even if it meant they had to leave their family here. One woman I was talking with, she had two grown daughters and a husband, and she was so homesick because she kept seeing her children and family back home. She was about to commit suicide so she could go back home. And I told her, I said, you can't do that. I said, when a star seed has a contract, your contract has to be fulfilled. They will make you come back, not out of spite, but just out of your contract needs to actually be fulfilled for your own soul growth.
Right.
So I was able to help her to come out of that. I know a lot about star seeds because the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial saga books are all about the Starseed program that come
Okay.
out of the University of Melchizedek.
Yep.
Tehran, who's the lead character, is the professor at the college level that teaches all the star seeds from this universe, other universes that have volunteered their time to come and be incarnated on Earth, go back into duality, quicken their spirituality because they're already so advanced,
Yeah.
so that the world's consciousness will lift up quicker and quicker and quicker. So,
Yep. Craig, just watching time here, but so would you be able to name 3 malevolent races and then 3 benevolent races that people should take interest in?
sure. Well, definitely there's the grays. By the way, the other, that what we would say the good grays, they prefer like the ones from Zeta Reticuli, they prefer to be called Zeta humans. They don't want to be lapped in the same category
Right.
as a gray.
Mm-hmm.
So there are those, and then there are also other offshoots of reptilians like the alpha albino drox, etc. But also to mention that there are a lot of good gray races as
Yeah.
well. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
gray races and reptilian races.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that these are the ones that are interacting with Earth. That's why we're talking about them. But also, good gray races and reptilian races are also interacting with Earth to try and counter that as well. So, and then I would say, of course, my favorite benevolent races are Pleiadians, Octurians, Andromedans, Sirians, Clarians, and Alpha Centaurians. I mean, I just love all of those races for
Yeah.
all different things
Yeah.
and the things that they are doing humanely to help the Earth,
Yeah. Well,
and that type of thing.
is there one race in particular that's looking out for the Earth, for us?
Well, there's guardians. There are guardians that oversee. Interestingly enough, the book that was released on January 1st is going into its 3rd reprinting this month. And so what we did was I combined, hang on, I'm sorry, these are always, I'm going to call you back. I'm on a radio show. My sister.
No.
So what was I saying here?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, is there one race that's looking out for planet Earth or looking out for us in particular?
Oh, yes, that's it. So what we've done is I combined Agartha and Telosians, since they are both inner Earth dwellers, into one chapter. And then I created a whole new thing on the Guardians that oversee the Earth as well and oversee other civilizations. So they're sort of they're called sort of like blueprinters. They're the guardians that oversee the evolution of a planet, but on an ethereal scale, where, as I call it, the galactarian alignment of planets and space peoples and planets, and the angelic course see it on the 3D scale and interdimensional scale. So we have this this new race, and then I put a whole lot of new information about Agartha in the book. So that'll be out in the third reprinting.
Okay. Um, have you got views or information that's been given to you on why they're here? Is it because Earth is some type of experimental laboratory?
Well, there lots of people say Earth is an experimental laboratory, but if you like the Agarthans say the Lemurians came here 250,000 years ago. They also say that the Atlanteans came 128,000 years ago. What was here before them, we don't know. We know that through a lot of the other races, like the Clermers, Kaldashians, Pleiadians, Syrians, a lot of all of the races, they have all been coming here and living and seeding on the planet as well. And then we all sort of wonder, we have so many different wonderful cultures on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Were these different cultures that came from other places? I know from actually one race, interestingly enough, they're called Aryans, but they're an actual Asian race. Mm-hmm. That also was one from the contactees, and in their section of their solar system, they had several Asian races that also would travel and together on a ship and go exploring and things of that nature. So it makes me wonder if a lot of these different races had come here over time and just have settled, or was it during the times of Atlantis? Was it one of those things where here's a world where all cultures can come and live in unity and complete harmony?
Yeah.
Until it all, went to crap.
Well,
right.
I mean, I love the theory about Atlantis. I think Georgios Tsoukalos put forward on one of his shows that Atlantis didn't go down; it went up and disappeared. And I love that. I love that explanation because that just makes sense. But with so many races coming here, they're obviously going to run into each other either on here or out in space. I mean, do you get any information? Are there warring factions out there? Are there races that are at odds with each other?
Well, in the galactarian alignment of space peoples and planets, all of the benevolent races are all joined together because they all believe in the one truth, which is we are all one and we all work towards helping each other. So they share all their technology, they share everything with each other. There are no secrets. They're a telepathic race, so they know when somebody is feeling. The difference is us in duality. We're able to hide our feelings. We cover them up a lot. When we become fully conscious, we still have those feelings, but now we're working from the heart instead of the mind and the ego. And what we're doing is then, therefore, when you're fully conscious, you can work things out. You can work your differences out. And if you can't, then you call in a created being, an angelic, or a master teacher from your section of the universe, and they help and they show you outcomes of when you're being harmonic with each other, how beautiful the outcome will be. And that's usually how things are settled.
Did you compile a lot of visual evidence in the book, and people actually see photos and even you know, figures and pictures in the book?
Well, the entire book is fully illustrated. So I worked with a lot of artists over the years. And then for this book, also with a lot of different artists to create some of the beings. Like I said, I took one picture of an extraterrestrial, an unknown extraterrestrial, while one of my friends who was being abducted. I flew to the Midwest and he took me around and was showing me everything. And I was snapping photos with my Minolta camera and got this interdimensional being on camera, right?
Wow.
So it was just fascinating in that respect. But yeah, it's daunting to come up with over 82 visual pieces, because some of the races I had more than one photo, artwork, renderings and things of that nature. So
Yeah, yeah. Is the book and your research going to leave people with more questions and have them searching for more answers?
well, again, like I said, it's meant to be a thumbnail review of each race. And if people are interested, they can go to the back of the book. Like if you really like learning about the Clermer race, you could go there and see that it was done by Colonel Wendell Stevens. He has a book out. He had a book out. He did over 65 books in his lifetime of contactee cases.
Yep.
So I was able to obtain permission for several of those, which were my favorite cases that I included. And you could go there and you could see, oh, okay, I could go get this book and this is where I buy it. Like
Right.
Wendell Stevens' daughter, Cece, runs the website called UFOphotoarchives.com. You could even get all 65 of his books for like 100 and some bucks in
Wow.
PDF. So that's a deal in itself.
It certainly
Right.
is. Yeah.
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 Craig, I found the reviews. I just went to Amazon, and I like to read reviews on books and products, and in the main they were excellent. But I got the feeling when I read three or four pretty bad reviews, it struck me that it seemed like there was one person writing them all. There was a sentence or two changed here and there, and a word rearranged here and there. Did you get the feeling that there's some sort of campaign out there to prevent you from releasing this information?
Well, I don't think if it's a campaign to release it, because the information is released.
Or
I
discredit
mean,
you?
but to discredit it, yes, there's always going to be those fractions. And interesting, the ones that you're talking about all came in within the course of a few days, and they all basically said the same thing: horrible writing, horrible artwork. You could find all this information online. Now, all of that is not true.
No.
Painstakingly to do artwork, each piece working with an artist is countless hours of time, not only my time, but the artist's time, right? And all of that. And it took me a year to write this book, and I have 35 years in this field doing it. Now, I consider myself a UFO enthusiast who just happens to know all the players in the industry. I've gone on contactee cases. I've gone some things, and I can call them and get information from them at any time of what's out there and what's going on. So yes, there are those things. And then there's people who don't do their research on how I did my research on the book. I mean, there was another review of somebody who said, who was saying something about, well, there's definitely more than 82 races. I mean, who does Campobasso think he is? for, you know, how would he not know that? Well, you wouldn't know that because you haven't listened to one of my interviews. I can't put them all in a book. I have to go within the constraints of what the publisher wants, and those types of things, you know. And then I think it was ended with, you know, what and why should we think that you're an expert? Well, I've been doing it for 35
Right.
years, and and like I said, I have a lot of experience in the field. So again, it's all conjecture, what certain people's belief, where their minds are. Are they open? Are they not open? Are they in the middle? Those types of things. So it's like my agent said when he read some of the bad reviews, he said, "Look, I just got to say, you made it."
You
Because
made it, yeah.
when you get those reviews, you know you've made it because somebody's trying to discredit you.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I just want to kind of switch gears very shortly for a couple of minutes, but before I do, just before we come off the topic of the book, your favorite race, completely favorite race.
I really love Pleiadians.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the race that is prevalent in the autobiography of Extraterrestrial Saga. So you get to learn a whole lot about the Pleiadians and a lot of the other races as well up there. But that's my favorite race.
Yeah, the Pleiadians have a strong connection with the Australian Aboriginals.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. Craig, do you have any thoughts on disclosure?
Well, I mean, I always look at everything from a balanced perspective. So if you go back and you see when the government started covering things up was in 47 during Roswell,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then one of the next big things that was covered up was Valiant Thor living at the Pentagon for 3 years. I know that story extremely well because I knew Dr. Frank Strange's, and I made the short film, and I'm making the feature film next.
Mm-hmm.
So those were where the cover-ups began, which has nothing to do with the current administrations or anything of that nature. But now that everybody has a cell phone,
Yeah, yeah.
and they can point it in the sky. I have some friends, a husband and wife team that lived in New York, and they're very connected to the beings out there. And they will hear a message every day that says, "Go to Central Park." They take a walk out, they shoot the camera up, and they get different ships every day in the sky. I started talking to agents and managers and producers, and they're capturing UFOs in the sky of perfectly clear photographs,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because they're looking up. All you got to do is look up, and when you see something, zoom in, snap some photos, take some video, that type of thing. So here is how I sort of see it, that they're sort of leaking things out a little bit at a time. I think it's either June or July when the rest of these papers are going to be released. Everyone can go to the Black Vault, theblackvault.com, John Greenwald's site, which is fantastic. I think there's over either 2 or 4 million uploaded already.
He's got an amazing collection there.
Yeah, and also a lot of Project Blue book files that have been released, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of blacked out pages, but at least you can kind of read between the lines and figure things out. I think the people that are there really want to say it, but I think there's also fractions that don't want people to come out and say it. So I think most of the world most likely believes that there is life out there, and at a certain point something will happen, and I don't know what, but something will happen that will sort of bring it into where everyone, it becomes sort of a part of everybody's lives.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, being part of the Hollywood scenario, and I've just been amazed over the years. You know, of the Hollywood motion pictures and series on aliens and UFOs. I mean, for example, let's look at Star Trek, and it seems seemingly the knowledge that Gene Roddenberry had. See,
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff seems to have been, you know, have come through, and people are using a lot of those gadgets now. So my question is a lot of the stuff written in Hollywood written by people who have had contact experiences, like people in the know?
Well, Gene Roddenberry also said that he knew he was getting downloads, but he also used to go and see channelings by a soul group of 9 advanced beings that were just consciousness, and they were called the Nine.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go and listen to these channelings well before he wrote Star Trek. And he went many, many, many times. A lot of big people that own corporations would go and listen to these channelings. So if you now, when you go and you look at Star Trek, the Enterprise numbers add up to a 9. And throughout all the rest of the Star Trek series, there was Deep Space Nine, 7 of 9,
Yep.
lots of things throughout the series. I think I added up something 10 to 12 things throughout all the years, added up to a 9. So I think that was sort of his homage also to that. Interestingly enough, a lot of downloads I received about ships and things of that thing when I was writing the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga, when I met Dr. Frank, and he would start telling me about being on Valiant Thor's ship, which is 300 feet in diameter, double decker, that's right behind me here,
Yep.
there. And it holds up to 200 people, and there's Victor 1, Victor 2, Victor 3, goes all the way up. And they were stationed in and around the Earth in 287 locations. So he started talking about things, and they were the exact same things that I had already downloaded and had put into my books as well. So,
Right.
I mean, that was great information and confirmation as well.
Couple of movies. I mean, I'm told there's a lot of movies actually out of Hollywood that the idea is just amazing. It's almost like you had to have had some sort of a download to produce it. But one movie that didn't get I mean, it didn't get a lot of publicity, was Mission to Mars with the seeding theory, and
Yes.
and another movie that kind of left me speechless and just made a lot of sense was Prometheus.
Right.
And
Right.
I thought at the time, I mean, whoever wrote these scripts had to have had some sort of contact experience.
Right, right. And then I mean, there's so many different ones. Like my favorite one still is Starman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Right. I mean,
yep,
and that was a John Carpenter movie,
yep.
right? I mean, that was just so great. Just how the whole movie took place. I mean,
Yeah.
it was quite brilliant.
Well, they're talking about a soft disclosure going on right now. Do you think Hollywood has been part of a soft disclosure over a long period of time?
I do, and I think that I think more movies, even when I get the feature film Stranger at the Pentagon off the ground, this will be a huge one because a lot of people don't know about it, although it is a very widely discussed worldwide for people in the UFO community and people who have heard about it. They all really are fascinated by the story. But this movie will be a big part of that disclosure to sort of heal that time period and so that this movie would be a healing for us in the future to start to allow the truth of everything to just come out, because the real reality is when our world becomes fully consciousness, there cannot be any more lies.
No.
Everyone will be telepathic. You cannot lie.
Right.
You understand?
Look forward to that day.
Yeah, me too.
Craig, so Stranger at the Pentagon, set in the 50s. How long has that short film been out for?
It came out, I think, in 2013, or I think it was 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's based in the 50s. It covers Eisenhower, Nixon, Joint Chiefs of Staff,
Mhm.
I think MJ-12, and the Galactic Council.
Galactic Council, the military industrial complex.
So it's a real life documentary.
It's not a documentary. How the short film came about is I made it as a proof of concept to show investors. So I took scenes from the feature film and sewed them together and left it with a cliffhanger ending to make them want more, right?
Right.
So I never was planning on showing it to anyone. And then as I was nearing completion, the Burbank Film Festival found out about it and they wanted to see it. So I showed it to them. And at the end, I have Dr. Frank talking about Valiant Thor in his own words and when he met him, etc. And when the guy who owns it saw that, his mind was blown and he made it an official selection. So I said, well, why not? Let's put it in a film festival and see what
Wow.
happens.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that it would go through the roof because the 24-minute short film sold out 275 seats immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to put on another screening at midnight, and that was half sold out.
Wow.
So, and there was so much press. It was like a real live movie premiere. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, we even had the Housewives of Beverly Hills there.
Wow.
Interestingly enough, because Eileen Davidson had just joined the cast,
Mm-hmm.
and she played Dina Thor, Valiant's wife, in the movie. So we got that, and then Ancient Aliens saw it and called me and wanted to do a piece on Valiant Thor. So I went on the show, and they did a brilliant job of sewing that whole story up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's season 9. It's called The Mysterious 9. Actually, also on that episode is where they talk about the channelings with the 9
Right.
as well. So it's a great episode.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of new people coming into the UFO believing space every day, and I'd say the majority of them wouldn't even know who Valiant Thor was, and I always tell people that don't know a lot about, I mean, who have just taken an interest, go back through history, look at the history, you know, from 1947 onwards. But just quickly, who was Valiant Thor?
So Valiant Thor is a created being, a universal emissary who is given the job to come here and to meet with President Eisenhower to show him a divine design about how the rest of the universe lives. Meaning, he would show him how they eliminated poverty on other worlds, how to eliminate sickness, disease, to talk to them about atomics and the dangers of atomics. And not only are they harming the Earth, but they're harming other planets as well, because these waves go off and knock planets a little off their axis,
Mm-hmm.
also interdimensionally as well. Also to talk about free energy and how polluting the Earth and all of those things. So there was a 3-year period where Valiant Thor would live and work at the Pentagon, not physically work every day in an office, but would meet with various people like the Joint Chiefs and all the other fractions, CIA, FBI, NSA, etc., and talk about this this proposal. And so really what the military industrial complex wanted was his technology. He had organic technology. They did not have that at the time.
Mhm.
All they had were the crash saucers that were downed in New Mexico
Right.
and other places as well. So so they really wanted that technology. So in my opinion only, I believe that they sort of led him on throughout this 3-year period to try and get as much information as possible, ultimately turning down his proposal because they said it would put doctors, nurses, pharmaceutical companies, electrical companies all out of business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Again, we go back to the time of Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Wow, what if we went with the free energy? What would
Exactly.
our world have been like today? But what did they do? They went for the greed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, in this situation, they went for the greed, right?
Yeah.
So these mistakes over and over and over and over again, will we finally learn them? Will we finally do this? Because we know our planet is hurting. We know it's a living entity and that we have to take care of her. We are the custodians of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is not just our planet, it is everyone's planet in the universe. All planets are shared. Everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
So these are the things. So that was his mission in a nutshell.
Okay. And the full-length feature film, how far away is that?
Well, it's as far away as me getting the funding.
Right. Understand.
So I am all ready to go. We have everything ready. And so I am talking to some financiers now. If there's any other financiers out there, contact me. Or we have a huge entertainment attorney. They've done over 500 studio features. They will be fielding all the finances, setting that up, and also will be our production attorney throughout the entire process.
What size budget would you be getting? Would you have to get
Right now, the budget of this is at 32 million. We can make it for less. We can make it for more. But the exciting thing about this movie is that we will be half out in the universe on Victor 1 crafts or motherships, starships on the interior of Venus, and the rest of the time we will be on Earth. So it's going to be half and half. So we're going to get to learn about both worlds,
wow.
1950s Washington, and also about all of the beings there and who they were and how they really wanted to see our planet succeed. And we're pulling for Valiant Thor and his mission and that kind of thing. So,
well, you're a casting director. Is there anyone you have in mind to play Valiant Thor? Given that this has a little bit of the day the Earth stood still about it. I mean, is Keanu Reeves a candidate?
No, because he already did it.
Right.
My two top choices would be Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
Cumberbatch. I always say Batch. It's Batch.
Batch.
And there's a wonderful actor named Lee Pace who looks so much like Valiant Thor. He's been in a lot of big movies, but he's always in heavy makeup, so a lot of people don't know who he is. He was in, The Lord of the Rings as the head elf, and Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's got a new big series coming out on Apple Sci-Fi. He's just brilliant. He looks just like Valiant Thor.
Fantastic. Craig, loved speaking with you today. So that Stranger at the Pentagon, the short film, people can still see, they can still purchase?
Yes, yeah, they can go to strangeratthepentagon.com and they can watch it there. I also have all of Dr. Frank's out-of-print books there, even Stranger at the Pentagon, and Outwitting Tomorrow, that was Valiant Thor was advisor on. And there's lots of posters and other stuff there. And then Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga, people can get at autobiography of anet.com. It's on the front page. If people want to get all 4 books, they can do it with one click or buy them individually. They can also go to that same website to get the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, which they click on other books for that as well.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it's very good.
Craig, thank you. Really enjoyed having you join us today, and I hope we can speak with you again.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Craig Campobasso joining us today.